Bonjour, je m'appelle Tomi Adeyemi, and that is the extent of my French. In case I still messed that up, hi, my name is Tomi Adeyemi, and I am the author of Children of Blood and Bone. Children of Blood and Bone is a young adult West African fantasy about a girl fighting to bring magic back to her people. I like to pitch it as Black Panther with magic, or Harry Potter meets a Nigerian Game of Thrones. A few different things inspired me to write this book. One was discovering the Orisha, which is the West African religion and mythology that's heavily featured in the book. When I discovered them, it was the first time I had ever seen African gods and goddesses, and I never even knew that that could exist. So when I saw that, my imagination exploded, and I could see the magic, I could see the world, I could see them riding through the jungle on giant lions, and really the worlds of the story came first. But the heart of the story came because of what was going on in America and what's still going on. When I was writing this book, police brutality was rampant, and I just felt like I was constantly bombarded with headlines and news stories and hashtags of innocent Black men, women, and children who had been killed by police officers. I knew I wanted to write this big West African fantasy, but I also knew that I needed to write a story about what was going on for Black people, and especially what it felt like. You know, the fear that comes with sitting in your car and not wanting to drive because you don't want to get shot going to the grocery store, or the fear that one day you're going to get that call and it's going to be your older brother or your dad or your cousin. So this, Children of Blood and Bone was sort of the merging of both of those books. And there's a lot of different messages I want this book to pass on, but the main ones are for a couple different audiences. So the first is for readers who are like me, who have been reading their whole life, who've always loved magic and adventure but never saw themselves in it, never thought that they could be the one to do the magic, or they could be the one to save the day, or they could be the one to have the big romance. So I want the readers who look like me, marginalized readers around the world, to know that they are worthy of being the hero, that they are worthy of being loved, that they're Black is beautiful, that their melanin is magic, I just want this to be a really empowering story for them. And for readers who are used to seeing themselves, I want them to fall in love with the characters who look nothing like them, who come from a land that isn't like theirs, who speak a language that they've never heard before. I want them to really immerse themselves in this celebration of culture, but I also want them to gain empathy through the characters in this book. Every obstacle my characters face mirrors an obstacle that Black people are fighting today, or that they've been fighting as recently as 30 years ago. So when they see the things that happen to these characters, when they feel the rage, when they feel the heartbreak, those are things that they can feel for real people who are going through the same exact thing. So I'm hoping this book, allows them to connect to something, to connect and understand something that is really hard to explain. It's really hard to put into words, which is why my book is so long. So yeah. All of the characters are kind of like my children in a weird way, so it feels weird to call one of them my favorite. So I can't pick a main character, but I will say a character that I deeply love is Rowan. He's only a minor character in this book, but he really just lights the page on fire, which is such a cheesy and gross writer thing to say, but he makes scenes really fun to write. And a book that made me want to write is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I'm very vocal about how much I love this book and how much I love and respect Sabaa Tahir. And when I read that book maybe like 4 months before starting Children of Blood and Bone, but it changed my world. I was so inspired by this incredible work of art that I wanted to write something magnificent. And this came out of it. So I'm eternally grateful to Sabaa Tahir. And for how I feel being compared to J.K. Rowling, that's definitely changed over the past year. In the beginning, I was really shy about it. I was sort of like, no, don't do that to J.K. Rowling, especially as someone who grew up loving Harry Potter. But as I've gone through this journey, and as I've really understood the role or this book has for certain people right now, and the potential for it with the movie adaptation, I had a friend ask once, what do you think our world would be like if Harry Potter had been Black? And that question blew my mind, because if the boy who lived had been this little black boy, then I wondered if we would have a child, a 12-year-old boy like Tamir Rice, gunned down in the park by police officers. And I really just started thinking, what would our world look like? What would our world look like? What would people feel? Because I've realized that stories and art are some of the most important things we create as human beings. So now when I'm compared to J.K. Rowling, I'm trying to own it. I'm trying to step into it. I'm trying to just take this story. So now when I'm compared to J.K. Rowling, I'm not letting, the little introvert in me run away from that. I'm trying to step into it and step into the greatness that the story can be and the message it can spread around the world, because I just really believe I've seen it make a positive change in 1 year alone. So I'm just excited for all that it's going to do. So yes, thank you so much for listening to this. I know this video isn't short, but look at my book. Nothing I do is short. I'm sorry. Last year, I think I received at least a dozen, if not more, messages from readers in France asking me, when's the book going to be out in France? When's Children of Blood and Bone going to be out in France? So I am so excited that it's finally happening. And I'm really excited that it's happening with you. So just thank you for all the great work you're doing.